Welcome back to another Algebra 2 video. I'm Mr. Hibble. This is all about log properties. So, breaking down some of these properties, let's just start with the basics. These different properties are multiplication, division, and whenever you have an exponential. The properties are kind of shown on the middle there. But let's look at these examples. So if you have two things multiplying inside of a log, right? Log of 4x. Well, the 4 and the x are multiplying, so we're allowed to separate those to two separate logs where those logs are adding now. Similar idea if you have two things dividing inside a log, right? 8 and y are dividing, so I'm going to separate that to two separate logs. But since they're dividing now, I show that division with a minus between the logs. The last example, we have an exponent. Whenever you have an exponent, that exponent can always move in front of the log, so 5 times log of x. And now we know the three properties that we can utilize. There's some tricks that we're going to start to learn whenever we start to break this down. Few things you always want to pay attention to. You want to pay attention to where are the terms, right? Where is each of these different components? Are the components on the top of a fraction or are they on the bottom of a fraction? That will tell you whether you should have a plus sign or a minus sign in front of the term. Okay, is there an exponent, right? If there's an exponent, then you need to make sure that you always move the exponent to the front. Let's look at this first example, number 1 now. Well, number 1, I notice log of 5 is multiplying with x to the second. There's really two components there. There's the 5 and there's the x squared. So I know that we're going to make two separate logs. I'm going to have log of 5. We're going to have log of x squared. But again, anytime you have an exponent, we said that the exponents need to go to the front. From here, we need to figure out, okay, what sign should we have between? What you're going to end up noticing is anything that's on the top of a fraction always has a plus. Well, in this case, we don't have a fraction at all. That guarantees that each of our terms should be positive or have a plus sign in front of them. Do you need that plus sign in front of the log of 5? No, but you get the idea as we explain it. Number 2, similar idea. Let's start to break that one down. Let's use this color today. So, okay, we have log of 5 over x squared now. So similar example, but now we have the division. So anything that's on top will be positive. So notice I'm going to have a positive log of 5. We know that the x squared needs its own log, but what I'm noticing about this is the x squared is on bottom. So now I'm going to have a minus in front of it with the x on the inside. Because the x was being squared, because it had an exponent, make sure you move that exponent to the front, 2 times log of x. Let's look at example 3 now. On the third one, log of 5, that one's going to be positive because the 5's on top. The 2 and the x on bottom, those are multiplying together, so both of those are going to get separated. But since both the 2 and the x are on bottom, that means that they both get a minus sign in front of their respective logs. So we'd end up getting something like minus log of 2 minus log of x. Each individual component that's either multiplying or whatever needs its own log. Exponents go to the front, and where the values are tells you positive or negative. Let's break down some other examples. These should start to go quicker. The 4 and the x are multiplying and they are on top. So we separate both of them. Since they're on top, there should be a plus sign in between. The y is on bottom. Give it its own log with a minus in front. Number 15, continuing to go through these. Notice there's this base of 3. Don't let that base confuse you. That's just a part of the log. So whenever you expand it, that 3 should be on each term. The 7 and the y cubed is where we can separate this. But since the y is being cubed, make sure you move the exponent to the front of it. And now we have something like this. Notice neither of these were on the bottom of a fraction, so they're both positive. 16 as well. The x and the y are multiplying, so we're going to have two different logs here. Take whatever the exponents are, move them out in front of those respective logs. So, okay, I should then have plus log of y, but the y had an exponent of 4, so make sure it's in front of that log. Notice I generally do those exponents at the end once I've already analyzed what it looks like. Some other ones that might be a little bit longer, maybe a little more challenging. Always good to see a few more examples though. The 9 and the x are multiplying, so we can separate it there. The x is on top, so it also is a plus or positive. It had an exponent of 7, move it in front. The z to the 5th is on bottom, so okay, here is minus with that log because it's on bottom. But again, be careful when you do this. Oops. Make sure that the exponents always go to the front of it. Number 20 is now done. 21, make sure the base of 4 is in each of the logs, separate it at anywhere they multiply. Anything on top, again, make sure it is a plus. So in this case, we would end up getting something like this. There you go. Okay. From here, what we can always do is the opposite of what we just looked at, though. What we just did is what's called expanding logs. That means you take some log statement and you try and make it longer. You separate it so that you have individual logs adding and subtracting together. It creates a long string. But the other thing you can do is the reverse of that. You can take a string of logs and condense them together to make one singular log, as long as they are all the same base. For example, number 26. We're going to make this into a singular log where all we have is stuff on the inside. Well, what we have right now is 8 times log x. Well, I know that any number in front actually represents an exponent. I know that the signs in front of them tell me where to put them in this fraction. So the x to the 8 is positive, so I know that must go on top. The 4 in front of the y is also positive, so that will join the x on top of the fraction, where those two components now are multiplying. The z that has the minus in front, there is no exponent with it, but there is the minus part. The minus always tells me to move it to the bottom. Let's look at number 27. We want to make this, again, a singular log. Anything that is positive goes on top, which is the 9. Anything that is negative goes on bottom. Whatever values are in front, throw those back to the inside and make those an exponent again. The x and the y both had minuses in front of them, so there we go. They're both on bottom now. Number 28, wrapping up with another example. The 2 will go inside with the x. It is positive. Make sure it's on top. The y is negative. It's on bottom with the exponent of 3. We have now condensed these logs, and we have our final answers. Thanks for watching. Those are the log properties, expanding and condensing logarithms. Thanks for watching.